You know, when the president was first elected, he was compared to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The media touted him as the answer to our nation's economic troubles. But with the stunning downgrade of our country's credit rating for the very first time, will President Obama now be compared to FDR's predecessor, Herbert Hoover, who history has blamed for the Great Depression and sending the U.S. into an economic tailspin? Is that fair? Is it President Obama's fault? Joining us now is Gretchen Hamel, Executive Director for Public Notice and a former spokeswoman for the House Republican Conference, and Ryan Clayton, a Democratic campaign consultant. Gretchen and Ryan, welcome to both of you this morning.
Thanks for having us.
Gretchen, let me start with you. I mean, it really is unbelievable. We went through World War I, the Great Depression, World War II. That didn't damage our credit rating. And now this. And this weekend, the president, frankly, is not saying anything. No statement from the White House is expected. Will he get the brunt of the blame?
Oh, they will get some of the blame here, but Republicans and Democrats are both to blame for this. Let's look back at spending over the past 10 years, and it increased 60% under President Bush. But President Barack Obama hasn't done anything to, tamp down spending and get it under control. He had the opportunity earlier this year to present a budget that actually took on cost drivers and made some tough decisions, but he failed to do that.
Well, it may not be fair to say he hasn't done anything to try and get it under control. I mean, clearly he has been calling for some restraint, although he also wanted taxes to go up.
That is true. He did want taxes to go up, but that's not the leadership we need here. We don't need just to say tax more. We need to roll up our sleeves. We need to dive into that budget, and we need to take on what are those drivers of our debt. Defense spending is one thing that needs to be looked at. It's a very bloated department. You can look at Social Security, Medicare. There needs to be reforms there. So, Ryan and myself have the ability to have those benefits in the future. And then also look at some of the agencies. You have tons of waste in a lot of agencies that something needs to be done about.
But what are the chances of that really happening? I mean, the S&P says there's no long-term plan to get the spending under control.
Well, the real problem is that you got Democrats and Republicans in Washington who've simply stopped working together, and I would put that blame squarely on the shoulders of the Tea Party caucus in the House and the lack of leadership coming out of Speaker Boehner, who thinks that what he's doing is political leadership, but what it really is partisan foolishness. And we have economic terrorists running around threatening the global stability of the economy just so they can make a political point. And frankly, that's irresponsible, and everybody throughout America knows that.
Ryan,
they also know that Obama passed...
Economic terrorists? You think that really is fair to say that?
I would say that they threw a bomb at our economy with this political argument over the debt ceiling debate and held on to it and threatened and held a gun to all of our heads saying we're going to threaten this debt ceiling crisis, this downgrade, if you don't give us everything we want. And guess what? They got everything they wanted. And they still pulled the trigger. And now what we have is a downgrade from the S&P. Did you get what you want, Tea Party? Did you get what you want, Republicans in Washington? Because everybody in America does not want this.
You know what? He should be doing advertising for the Tea Party. I mean, he just gave them so much more credit. I mean, he said that they are responsible for the downgrade. I mean, come on, really?
Yeah,
no,
I mean, welcome to the Tea Party recession. Let's hope that it doesn't turn into the second Great Depression.
The downgrade is because we haven't done anything about our debt. We haven't done anything about it over the past 10 years. And we're showing no long-term plan because, like Ryan said, they aren't working together. And they need to work together in order to take on this plan. But, to blame this solely on the Tea Party is completely wrong.
Well, the clock is ticking. How do they work together? I mean, we saw what happened just the past few months. We went right up to the very last second.
Yeah.
Ryan, you think that's going to happen? If they don't get something done by, what, December 23rd, stuff gets cut.
Well, look, the clock has already run out, and they have already said that they've downgraded us economically. That's going to have huge ramifications on our ability to lend and spend and interest rates on our debt. They've just exploded the debt by billions of dollars in this one stroke. They've put millions of people out of work. And yes, that is the Tea Party's fault. And more importantly, it's Speaker Boehner's fault, people like Eric Cantor's fault, and people like Grover Norquist's fault, where 97% of the members of the House signed a pledge to never raise taxes ever for any reason, even in times of war. And that is specifically what the S&P said is responsible for this downgrade, is their lack of ability to see that you need to raise revenue at some point to run a government.
Ryan, let me just one point to Ryan. Harry Truman said, the buck stops here. Do you believe that that also applies to President Obama on this?
Yeah, we've got to balance the power, and obviously President Obama has got a lot on his shoulders right now, and he is responsible at the end of the day for bringing this economy out of the doldrums. And what he's got to do is start focusing on jobs. He needs to put this debt ceiling debate to bed. and start focusing on rebuilding the middle class in America, which is the only thing that's really going to
Yeah,
bring
but how does he
all
do
back,
that
bring
if the gap is so
back
big? How does he do that if the gap is so big and there's no plan, according to the S&P?
Yeah, well, President Obama's got a plan. It's just that the Republicans have been stalling him now for this debt ceiling debate for months. They've been planning this since January of this year. They've been planning to throw this bomb at our economy, and they finally got what they wanted. Can we now move on? Can we now start creating
Gretchen,
jobs in
are we going to be able to move on?
Because that's what America wants.
All right, what about the bomb, and are we going to move on?
Well, first of all, I want to know what his plan is. And, you know, I don't think we're going to be able to move on from this. And, you know, government spending is all about jobs. And economists have said this, even Harvard economists have said this, that if we reduce government spending, which at this level, when it is the entire size of our economy, is a drag on the economy and jobs, that something needs to be done. To pull back government spending, to rein it in and get it under control will create jobs. And this isn't going to end. We have the fiscal year for 2012 coming up. We could be looking at a government shutdown come October 1 before we even get to the Super Commission's recommendations.
All right, Ryan, you're shaking your head. Last word.
You know, what I'd say is what we're really seeing is a fundamental flaw of supply-side economics. Trickle-down economics simply doesn't work. We can't cut our way out of this recession, and if we keep trying to do so, we're going to end up in another Great Depression. What we need to do is put Americans back to work. President Obama needs to focus on creating jobs throughout this country and really rebuilding the American class and rebuilding the dream for most Americans.
All right, Ryan, Clayton, Gretchen, Hamel, thank you so much for the debate. They had a deal, but the clock is still ticking. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.